Matthew from Havana, Illinois. I was very hesitant to vote for President Trump in the 2016 elections because of character issues, yet he has done some significant things in regards to the sanctity of human life. How do you wrestle through these issues? Matthew, I want to thank you for your question. I'm sorry we're out of time on, I'm kidding you, we're not. But boy, isn't this an interesting question right here in 2020? Because doesn't it, for one thing, just remind us how fast time goes? I mean, it seems like we were just talking about these issues in 2016, and here we are in 2020. And in 2016, I was, let me put it this way. My political understanding is tied to my Christian worldview, has been basically a very straight line from the time I was a teenager until, I would say, 2016. I didn't face many hard decisions electorally between the first presidential candidate I voted for, who, by the way, was Ronald Reagan. I worked for him in 1976 in the campaign, but I couldn't vote. But in 1980, I was 20, but it was the first presidential election in which I could vote, and I voted for Ronald Reagan. No question, no mental energy required. Supported him again. Worked in the campaign. That made perfect sense. And ever since then, it's just made perfect sense. I might have had a different candidate in some presidential cycles in the primary process, but by the time we got to the general election, it was very clear that I was going to support the Republican candidate because of my own worldview commitments and the issue of the sanctity of human life that first loomed really large in the American presidential election process in 1980, and has every year since then. And you come to add to that the importance of the courts, again related to the abortion issue, but far larger than just the abortion issue. You take the fact that in general, by the time you get to say the mid 1990s, it's becoming implausible that a Democrat's going to be anyone other than someone very consistent with the Democratic platform, and the Republican is going to be someone very consistent with the Republican platform, and on issues related to everything from marriage to sexuality to obviously even hermeneutics, the way you interpret the Constitution. You have two different worlds. In 2016, that became a very confused territory. And it wasn't because the Democratic candidate wasn't predictable. The Democratic candidate, Hillary Clinton, was extremely predictable. The Democratic platform in 2016 was tragically predictable, especially on issues of abortion and even calling for taxpayer funding of abortion in 2016. The disequilibrium in the race had everything to do with the Republican side. It had everything to do with Donald Trump, kind of astounding all expectations of the political class, and winning the Republican presidential nomination. And look, he came with more baggage than any presidential candidate in American history. I mean, that is of a major party. He came with more baggage than anyone else. I mean, he wrote books in which he bragged about his promiscuity, bragged about how he cut deals. His personal character was such that Americans knew what they were getting in the 2016 election. And in the final weeks of the election, you had the bombshell of the video in which he had made comments to a television personality that were just beyond even kind of the moral vocabulary of most evangelical Christians. And yet, against all odds, again, that is of at least the political class, Donald Trump won election in 2016, winning in the Electoral College. All kinds of reasons behind that. I did not vote for Donald Trump. I certainly did not vote for Hillary Clinton. As a matter of fact, I did something like 30 radio spots, commentaries, and they were all against Hillary Clinton. I just couldn't do them on support of Donald Trump. But they were all against Hillary Clinton. I could not possibly have voted for Hillary Clinton, nor encouraged anyone to vote for Hillary Clinton, nor for anyone who was running on the Democratic platform at all. So it was the platform itself and its abhorrence, and it was Hillary Clinton. And again, there were character issues related to Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton. I mean, my goodness, massive character issues, but not the same. Hillary Clinton was the epitome of the establishment in 2016, such as it is. and Donald Trump was the epitome of the anti-establishment candidate. But I had gone on national television something like 45 times during the Bill Clinton crisis, and I called upon President Bill Clinton to resign his office. Sorry, you can't say not just. Both for the fact that I believed he had committed perjury before a grand jury and sexual misconduct and even abuse, when you consider he was president of the United States, that was unforgivable in that office. And so I felt that I was in a position where I could not say, well, I said that to Bill Clinton when he was president, but I'm not going to say that to Donald Trump when he's a candidate. Are things different in 2020 for me? I'm going to get your name again, Matthew. I'll tell you they are different for me in the final calculation. A couple of things. Number one, in terms of how Christians view government and representative or constitutional democracies, I would argue that what's happened in the United States is that the partisan divide has become so great that we are basically in a situation where we're almost like someone voting in a parliamentary system. It comes down to the position articulated by the party. That's going to be most important. And I realize this is something that's likely to be true for the rest of my life. For the rest of my life, I'm probably just going to vote for unless the moral situation changes, and that's always possible, not likely though. Look at the trajectory of these parties over decades. I'm not likely to live long enough for anything to be fundamentally different, which means I am just going to end up voting for the Republican presidential candidate and campaigning in every way I know against. And again, I made every argument on the briefing I could against Hillary Clinton in 2016. And I already have been, as clear as I think I could possibly be about the impossibility of voting for the Democratic candidate, in my view. It's not just over the sanctity of life issue, but just consider that party swerved so far to the left and is now even on religious liberty issues, so antagonistic to biblical Christianity. And when you consider what happened, with the contraception mandate in the Obama years, and you consider the transgender revolution, the whole LGBTQ collision with religious liberty, you think about the future of the courts, and yes, the sanctity of human life. I don't think anyone is actually a single issue voter. And I say that because they're related issues. But the fact is, I don't believe you actually, I don't understand the people who would say, yes, I'm entirely for the transgender revolution at the expense of religious liberty, but I'm pro-life. In other words, those people may be eccentric, but that is not a normal worldview pattern. And it's because we understand there's a basic Christian worldview, a theistic worldview, and it has implications. And there's a non-theistic worldview, and it has implications. And so there are very few opportunities, I would say, actually, to be an honest single issue voter. But I think every one of us, if honest, would say is at least one issue that would be determinative for me. And I don't apologize for saying that the life issue is determinative. So what have I learned? I've learned, I think, that the platform is where I have, in the general election, I don't have the opportunity to choose the candidate. I have the opportunity to elect one of these two candidates presented to me. And so I'm just being honest and candid. I don't have a different moral estimation of Donald Trump. I mean, even in office, I mean, he continually leaves me very frustrated in how he presents himself, how he speaks. But he has been more consistent in pro-life decisions, executive orders, I think that are consistent with what I see to be as the rightful exercise of government on so many of these issues. And he has been more consistent than any president of the United States, of any party, but he's been more consistent than any Republican, certainly, in the quality of appointments he's made to the federal judiciary, which will far outlive any presidency. And then again, I just want to say it's in the context of the fact that in order to win the Democratic nomination, which is a party now far to the left of where it was in 2016, Joe Biden, who also has character issues. Now, let's not say moral equivalence. You take any two individuals, they're never exactly the same. But But there are all kinds of, I mean, what he did on the Hyde Amendment, that, and, having been for it for so many decades, he told us, and then all of a sudden he's against it. There are all kinds of character issues here. But I will make a different political calculation in 2020